This downstairs is what used to be the grocery store. In 1926 it opened, and upstairs is the hospital when it was built. So the grocery store was built whenever the hospital was built.
This was the hospital?
This was the grocery store right here, and the hospital was upstairs. The actual hospital. And what happened was they had the clinic, Dr. Sibley Holmes here. He came to Foley in 1916. He graduated from medical school. He was the third of 5 generations of surgeons in his family. His grandfather was at the massacre at Fort Mims up in north end of the county when 400 settlers and Indians were massacred that day, and his grandfather saved 17 of the 37 survivors. He hacked out the back of the blockhouse, and women and children and slaves and himself. He was a big 6'4", booming voice doctor. But anyway, Dr. Sibley went to the Alabama School of Medicine. College of Medicine was in Mobile from 1850 until the 1920s, and it moved to Tuscaloosa with University of Alabama, and kind of languished, then moved to UAB. But he came to Foley, and he started his practice upstairs, and this is right here, over where there was a drugstore for 90 years here on the corner of 59 and 98. And he put his practice right up here, and you had to go up the little doors, little stairs, little narrow stairs are not to code, and that was his clinic. And he had an x-ray room and exam room in his office, and his son was growing up and went to Tulane, and went to Alabama first, and he went to Tulane, and he went on the surgical school in Shreveport where he met his wife Philomene Bougards, and she was a nurse. And they got married in 1925, and his dad coerced him to come back and help him run the hospital and deliver all the babies because Foley was just booming. And so when you go south on 59 to the bridge at the Intercoastal Canal, it says Dr. W.C. Holmes Bridge is the name of the bridge, and that's named for the son who built the hospital during the Depression. His father had passed away in 1933. He was before penicillin, and he'd gotten sick like with pneumonia and had passed away. The drugstore, the Crosby's drugstore, was what was below the office, below Sibley Holmes' office and physician and surgeon was his office above the drugstore. He was also a state legislator in the 20s, and he was responsible for paving Highway 59 from Babynet to Gulf Shores, and it was called the Sibley Holmes Trail originally, and then the federal government took it over and became Highway 59. And so, but he was busy. They delivered over 400 babies. The sled here was, he found, a family had brought this sled from Farmington, New York. Their ancestor in 1800 used it to make his house calls. He'd hook up his horse in the snow, would make his house calls, and his doctor's bag and what have you. But they had it in storage, and they finally done it. What are we going to do with the sled? You know, it doesn't make a very well, you know, entertainment center. So anyway, and so we have things here. Think about the hospital. It closed. It closed in 1958. They built a new South Baldwin Hospital, and everything there was brand new, spanking, wonderful, innovative, and everything here was old. And there were things here from the turn of the century. And so the x-ray equipment that we have upstairs was from the 20s, gave off 40 times more powerful x-rays.
So you're saying that the equipment up there is the original equipment?
The original equipment. And it's like walking back in medicine 80 to 100 years ago. And so we have things, you know, they have the old pressure cuffs that had mercury. He had a pharmacy outside up on stilts. He was afraid of setting fire to the hospital, and so the pharmacy equipment now has been moved into the women's ward. But he would make his prescriptions. He'd go out on a catwalk off the roof and work on making his prescriptions, because you had to make a lot of your own prescriptions and compounds. But they moved it inside. When they opened the hospital, there was a men's ward, 2 or 3 beds, a women's ward, and then there was like a total of 10 beds, and it was $3 a day in 1936. And we have a bill in here for $67 for having a baby boy in 1955. Kenny Stabler, the snake that played football at Alabama, and then Oakland Raiders, and then in the Hall of Fame, he's our famous birth baby. He was born here on Christmas Day in 1945. His mother was a nurse.
You're going to see her? Well, I gotta get the information. As soon as I can, I'll get to you.
All right. And so, but she's, I'm posting Rose pictures of me. It really was very uplifting. I heard just a little bit going through it and 36. And Kennedy's Market, we're currently kind of refurbishing some of the things from the old market that was here. Here's a photograph of what the market looked like inside. Like I said, it was kind of like a Walton's mountain top. Little house on the prairie. The old displays and the meat counter and what have you. The things that they found when they locked the stairs upstairs when they built the new hospital, it was like a time capsule. There were little left, linens, equipment, surgical tables, everything was just left as they were. And he just walked out because Dr. Holmes became the first chief of staff at South Baldwin Hospital. And so he had to go on to his job, and it turned out he had ALS and had cancer, and he died at age 60 in 1960.
So is any of the family still here?
They have cousins that are here, and
Mhm.
nephews and nieces. His three sons, I'll show you a picture, his three sons, two of them became surgeons, and one's in Fairhope now, but he's 90, and then 87-year-old is in Arkansas. But he had three sons, Buddy Jr., Jimmy, and Brooks. And here's,
That's his three sons?
that's the three sons.
And so, just the one alive, or is all three of them?
All three of them are still alive.
Okay.
Two surgeons, and the attorney Brooks is in Mobile.
So two of them followed his practice, and the
That's
other one,
right.
yeah.
And they come back. They still have like 100 acres down below Old Time Pottery. They have, like I said, they've got books upstairs of the names of babies, Holmes babies that were born here, and they come back and visit us. And one of the Holmes patients built this staircase that goes up and enters to where the enters where the nursery was. And so the art has nothing to do with the hospital. It just so happens at the time that the hospital was being restored, this artist passed away. She was part of the Dixie Art Colony, which was a group of artists that got together for a month in the summer.
So did his family turn this over to the museum?
Yeah, his family, it was in a trust, and the guys were all doing doctoring and lawyering and whatever, and so they weren't really that concerned because it was all in the trust. Downstairs on the street level, all the businesses continued going on and renting and whatever else did.
And this just got closed up?
And this just got locked up. It was just like the time cap, like World War II museum. It just was locked up. And so it was, like I said, the linens and x-rays and everything, books, was all left up there. And these stairs, luckily, were built. This was built by a patient who had his big toe saved by one of the interns
How they doing?
in the 50s. He was here, and he had got severed his big toe off. And he came in, and Dr. Holmes told the intern, the Dr. Holmes would just save some skin on the end of it and wrap over the end of the stump when you cut the rest of his toe off. And this is Buddy. This is the son that built the hospital.
Okay.
He was in post-World War II for 4 years, and Philomene, the wife, ran the hospital. And so these are books with all the copies of birth certificates. None of that was here. And this is the stretcher that they use to carry up and back on the back steps.
They didn't have elevators back then.
It looks like it came from the Civil War.
It does, yeah.
And
Wow.
these are the actual hallways.
So this was the way it looked?
This is how it looked. This is the hospital. This is the surgical room, the sterilization, the autoclave, and the sterilization. These are not cappuccino machines.
Oh, come on.
These are sterilization.
That's how they sterilize their equipment, yeah.
And
Surgery?
surgery. This is the same model surgical table as they have on the USS Alabama. And the surgical equipment is very scary. You can see it's all developed by men. And there's no, these original floors. There's no.
Is it the blood bucket?
This is the junk.
And the human waste?
Yes, all runoff and extra stuff. This is the ether machine and the EKG with paper still in it. This is the sponge rack. They say there's still blood on it. I don't know at the time. But anyway, they would take him gauze and they would count the number. And so whenever they got through with surgery, they'd count the number they had left. They use this if they squeeze out the gauze to see how much blood loss. They would measure the amount of blood loss to go into the pan.
I'm talking about high tech.
Yes, and this is when he had collapsed lung. And I love this one right here. I was going to tell you, I had a nurse here about 4 months ago. Notice this one right here. This man, tall man with his hands. She was downstairs, and I was telling her about the baby's crying, I'd been told. And she said, oh, they're all on me. She said, I normally don't tell people, but they're all over me upstairs. And she said, as a matter of fact, this was the men's ward. Then they moved the x-ray equipment in here. And this is what gave off 40 times more powerful x-rays. And there was no lead floor, lead shield, or lead cone. It was just strictly flat out x-rays.
If you think you're scared to go to the doctor now.
I was in London and fell to the Tower in 2011, and they went to the Royal London Hospital. Doesn't it sound impressive? Well, it was the experience was Stephen King meets Benny Hill. And so that was the experience.
And I like both of them.
Yes, and it did cost a dime. Here's the stretchers. Had
Yeah.
all rotted out. They would come up through these doors and off the old stairs that were outside. And so.
Well, that's what brought them in straight from the street
Yeah,
there.
and these are old rusty forceps that are before 1870.
Grab the head of the baby out.
Yep, and end up, damaging their nerve. And this,
Yeah.
I finally had a woman tell me what this was. This was used early on to hold your tonsils down while they went in there and cut them out. And that just, it's not for wine bottle opening. We all know what these are.
And we think we got it wrong.
Yes, we think we have about time. This is the changing room.
Oh, I like that doctor's uniform there.
This is his sterile, well, they're just doing good to wash their hands,
Oh, yeah.
This-
No, I'm familiar with Dr. Benjamin Rush
Well,
and how he did a lot to clean up our hospitals.
well, of course, I've got a book downstairs from 1910. This was a women's ward, which is a real skeleton, which is from,
This is a human,
human skeleton.
real, not one of the fake ones.
No, it's a real one, real skeleton. And he's missing a few fingers, it's falling off. But this is centrifuge and the counter.
I used to have one of those chemistry sets as a kid.
Just like that?
Yeah.
Well, this was found in an old doctor's house up in the attic, and the family donated
Back
it.
then, it came in a metal box, and they won't sell that stuff to us anymore.
That's his kit. And his waist, his scales, and something else. And then these over here, and all the things to make prescriptions, and the pill forms.
Yeah,
to make the pills.
this was big pharma back in those
Oh,
days.
yeah. And down here, there's an empty bottle of Hadacol, a blue and white bottle down here. Hadacol was an elixir the Louisiana state legislator, snake oil salesman, a surprise from Louisiana. He planned to run for governor. He it's like vitamin Vegemin, full of silver, 4 vitamins and a 12% alcohol. And so everything's like 24 proof. Everyone who took it felt so much better. And so, the good ones that weren't going to drink, well, they were taking a lot of Hadacol. They recommended 4 tablespoons a day, like a shot glass. And the artwork on this side, this is 4 of them, found out from the man from the hometown of the artist lived. Park Davis Pharmaceutical Company in the 50s paid him $1 million. He's like Norman Rockwell of medicine, medical art. He traveled the world. I'll tell you this last thing right there in a minute. Anyway, he studied, he took notes, he took pictures, he came back and used people in town, and he did the story of pharmacy. And so you had Louis Pasteur and different ones. This is called a show globe. Show globe, it's got different compartments. It's not like I Dream of Genie bottle. What they would do, people were illiterate and couldn't read, they would take this with a different color liquid in it, and they'd put it in the window. So if you came through the town in a stagecoach or whatever, you were traveling through, they would see if the chemist or the doctors or whatever, this, and it had like blue and green or whatever, but it had a whole lot of red. You knew to keep going. There was like the plague or influenza or something going on. So
It was like they did after 9/11 for real.
yeah, but they told people just by visually looking. It's before they had flashing signs.
So now it's clear, so it's safe.
Yes, everything's safe. It's pretty good. And so,
They sterilized everything,
sterilized,
right?
everything's sterilized and stuff. But yeah, it's everything. There's things in typically, I don't know. There's all kinds of things. They got methylated cure in the pharmacy.
Oh, my goodness.
And so it's,
When I was a teenager, I fell out of a tree and knocked the wind out of me in my chest. And the same doctor that birthed me came to the house. But you're not going to see that happen anymore.
no, you don't. So this is the patient's bathroom. You notice there's no toilet.
Here you got
Just
bedpans.
bedpans and enema buckets and urinals. Not the plastic ones, but the glass
Right.
urinals. And all different kinds. Comes with little flaps, some with lids, rectangle.
Got your choice.
You have no choice. These are the floors, and the walls. The night we had the paranormal investigation, we had infrared cameras set up, and just back there, I was watching downstairs, I was spraying a little white cotton ball just started dancing across the floor. It went down over there, and then all of a sudden it went zip, and it went down. We had turned all the air and the fans off and everything. This is, they actually had a nurse's station if the light would come on if a patient needed assistance. And the old metal chart holders that they used to have. Had nurses say, oh, when you drop this, and the papers would go everywhere and make a huge noise. And you'd have to put them all back.
I know they used those through the 60s.
They did a long time.
Yeah.
And see back, this is the Holmes quackery room that man donated his collection. And some things that have evolved into actually being used. This is not right here. This looks like a weird satellite dish. This was, they promoted it. You put it on the floor and you put your heel in there, and supposedly the light, that the health of your Achilles heel will tell you how healthy your thyroid is. And it's called applied kinesiology, and it doesn't work.
Like iridology and a few other things.
And this is a varicose vein reducer, some kind of compressurized thing. You
Did it work?
Well, just temporarily. But this man was an Indian fella. I sold one of these, sold on American Pickers the other day. But anyway, this has colored lenses in it. And he had a 450 watt light bulb and different colored lenses combinations. He has the Star of David to give it some legitimacy. Anyway, he would blue, green, purple, and he would use, so if different combinations would cure your thyroid, your indigestion, your,
So what do we need all this medication for?
Yes. And they'd put him in jail. It was during the time of the Food and Drug Act, and then he'd get back out and go back to selling it. This was in the teens.
Sound like some people I know.
And there's a tin stimulator. This down here is a portable at-home tin stimulator, which now they use, orthopedics use. But this said you could put it on your neck, and bursitis, and also tonsillitis. Yeah, or if you had tired, aching feet, you take and put your feet in a bucket of water and attach this wire to it, and drop the wire, the live wire, into the bucket of water.
Called electro.
Yeah. And this is a barber's bowl. George Washington. I mean, they were still doing bloodletting in the
leeches.
40s. And leeches, and but he had a sinus infection, and the doctors bled him out. He bleeding out. This is the teens. They thought radiated water was the cure-all. It was like the fountain of youth. It glowed in the dark, and so the wealthy people had these in their home. And this particular one, the insides of it is comprised of components of radon and arsenic. So we've got to get a permanent label. Yes, they were killing them. It was just killing them. This was not good.
It wasn't nature. It was
not good. And so this is the fine box for the glass bit to go in. This is the early exam chair from the 1800s. I've never found out what these are. Yeah. But this is all the factory room that's got. And some things are the.
So this is the room that no matter what's wrong with you, there's a cure
There's
right
a cure.
here.
This can cure everything. Well, this right here can cure everything except broken bones and the pain associated with having birth.
Well, I'm not going to give birth. So.
Oh, there's a really cool bag downstairs that he also promoted.
People ask me what I think about abortion. I say, if I get pregnant, I'm not going to abort it.
Not well. This is what the maternity room looked like. The incubator had a 150 watt light bulb, and
we laugh, but this was modern medicine.
This is modern medicine.
And I keep telling people, think what they're going to look at us 100, 200 years from now.
Even 50.
Yep.
And just look how much it changed from those 22 years that this was open. My daughter was probably weighed on those scales.
Well, my grandmother was a victim of the frontal lobotomy.
Oh.
She died with a hole that had drilled in her skull right there. Yep.
Yeah, what they did with the Kennedys to that poor girl.
Yeah.
But these were, and they thought that infrared light would help when babies they have the red skin. That's what's it called? My grandson has a heat light eczema.
Eczema, yeah.
And they thought that this ultraviolet heat light paint in Chicago was going to help. And so,
and this has probably got lead paint on it.
I'm sure, and that was, they couldn't determine, the Smithsonian could determine how all that was. And see, back in the late 60s, and said, kids, all these kids, the GP and the shoe salesmen were putting I'm sure there's a whole couple of generations that have got club, have got pigeon toes and that need, you know. And so, this hospital was built, it went up, this is people from rolling down the stairs in wheelchairs. And so, the boys, the Holmes boys, this is Mrs. Holmes's cake, and she was a tiny little woman, her uniform that she wore, and this room is the nurse's room, and sometimes they put the baby in there with them.
Oh, okay.
And so,
This might be doctor's office.
this is a nurse, this is Philomene's office.
Okay.
And she ran the hospital for 4 years, he was in post-World War II. She took over, this had been the cook's office.
Which was his wife.
This is what she looked like. She was a beautiful woman in 19. This is when she was 21.
She's probably not that good looking anymore.
No, she ended up looking like that over there.
Oh,
And she would scare the bejesus out of you. And these are old. These are not the ledgers from here.
So is she said to haunt this place?
No, she doesn't. But other folks, perhaps. She. This is like a ledger from not here, but this is an idea like in 1911. They would just put the husband or wife or whatever. They have the name at the top and they have a key at the front. So maybe, you know, West is the first name, and then Brunson, and then Smith, and then you know, Vickers or whatever. But they have a key in the front of what page number that family's bill would be. And so, but they would just write down what they had done, and it was like the bills.
Procedures.
$2,
$7. Yeah. $7 was a high price.
Yeah, that was a lot of money. They would pay in fodder and land, and this was originally the X-ray room with the shutters. But this is a dental X-ray machine, and dentists would use their hands to calibrate the X-rays, and they end up losing their fingers. And the doctor knows the dentist, and so he did that vision as well as.
Oh, I thought the barbers used to pull teeth.
Well, this is when it's advanced, but then you had all the lenses and things, and hearing audio.
Yeah.
Check
hearing, check hearing.
All of that. This was the waiting room. The tables are not original.
Okay,
They
so
have,
this
like,
was just
meetings,
the way.
like class reunion meetings and stuff. But the
Right.
freestanding ashtrays are original.
Oh, yeah.
Go down this way and then we'll come back.
Used to smoke in the hospital.
Oh, he was smoking at the hospital. The old diplomas from Dr. Holmes and what have you, looking out over the town.
Yeah.
And this was Sibley's office, and his original diploma from 1895 is on the wall and signed by all of his professors. Sometimes people get a vibe right here in front of all the books and stuff, and someone sit down at the desk. And but he went to Central America and fought with the Army yellow fever and malaria after he graduated in 1895, and then he did that for 15 years or so, and went to Texas, and ended up back here with his family. He was up in north end of the county.
What a remarkable fellow.
He was. And did a huge impact. But his son's name was Williams Coughlin, and so the WC was his nickname. He went to Alabama and got his degree, and then he went to Tulane. So, but they had he also had WC had a big house down on the beach, and he would pick up stuff. They lived here in town. He'd pick up things off the beach. It's kind of like an aquarium for today's, patients. And they bring in things. This is his office with all these books. And this is the oldest wheelchair we think we have, because we have one wrong. It's on one wheel. It doesn't have a double wheel, so you couldn't roll yourself. You have to be pushed by someone else.
A wicker wheelchair.
And it's heavy. And this is the restroom that was used by the patients. And also Dr. Holmes had to put somebody in the tub or reduce the fever or whatever. And this was a bright and sunny clinic room. I had the first apartment I lived in, we had a sink like this. You cannot stack many dishes in the sink.
No,
Wash it later. And I had a hot spigot and a cold spigot. This was used to resharpen needles.
Because you reused them.
The needle. You want to be first in line to get your.
Yeah.
And this is a very early spirometer. When you're in the hospital, you have the little the plastic thing you suck on, the blue ball goes up. With this, you had to blow in it, and there is a billow inside, rubber billow, that would inflate, and it would raise the lid up, and you had to do a calculation of all these numbers to be able to figure what the output was.
This was a high-tech
What is this?
hospital.
And this is omethylated mercurochrome and Carter's little liver pills and all that stuff. Secrets.
Euphorbia.
Yes, and you have they're going to stop making methylated mercurochrome.
I remember as a kid, they were still using these like that. Yeah, just like.
Listen, it's like the hammer and the screwdriver. It really hasn't changed.
Yeah. Out of warm upstairs.
And here we go.
This is.
And they, Those are some, this is a scary, oh, this is cool, let me show you this. I found this in the closet. Okay, here we have
And skeleton, the muscles.
the muscles, and it explains all, this is better than an encyclopedia that would have the vellum pages you would lift up and look
Yeah,
at all
but
the
at my
organs.
age, you gotta have a
And then-
magnifying glass.
And you have, it tells all the parts of the muscles in the body and how the organs work. There's a woman one up there, but I thought this was really cool.
That is.
Better than paper dolls.
Yeah.
And how it tells the nervous system and the skin. And they have, this is a cystoscope, and it's pretty darn. Yes, it's pretty involved. And so, anyway,
That's a cool looking doctor right there.
it is cool, isn't it? But they would go out to the store to go out to his,
The lab.
To go out to
Yeah.
the lab. And so.
Which is nothing out there.
No,
That's just a
nothing.
roof.
This room is just kind of, I'm not sure if this had a bed in it, or the doctor would sleep on it, or what. But the sink and the table are original on the floor, but the stove and the cabinets are
Feel
original.
like I just walked back in my
I
grandmother's
know,
house.
from 1936. And they go out, so there's a group of men, local men, that are supportive too, and they come up here and we call them the Franklin Society. And they sit outside and smoke cigars, and they sometimes fry fish or bring up some jambalaya or something and eat. And so and there used to be always some olives or something in their refrigerator where they would just fish fry. So I guess they do different fishes. But anyway, the volunteers, the Holmes babies, sanded down the woodwork, peeled 7 layers of wallpaper off the head on the wall. They painted the walls, refinished the floors, and there's a room we've got to repair some water damage from the ceiling fell in, and it has horsehair up in the plaster. This is the nurse's restroom.
Well, they do. Yeah.
I don't think they spent much time in there.
They was in and out, right?
That's right. Freaking services.
Not the kind of place to sit.
No closets, no floor. See, the new hospital, the other water fountain, the new hospital had bathrooms connected to the old rooms. And,
I remember when you had to share rooms.
yeah, I don't have my daughter in 71, you had to share the room.
Oh, boy.
So, but this is it. So it's white. It was right here that little white dot was here. And we had one of those red, green, blue.
So where'd you have the camera set
We had
up?
to have one here, and they had one in that hall shooting that way.
Okay, so
We
this
had-
one going that
yeah.
way, and yeah.
And it was right up along in here is where the little orb. And
How'd
then
they
in the
done?
infrared camera, we had those orbs that appeared outside the maternity room.
So
And-
y'all are open to that sort of thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then, like I said, I had the nurse tell me there was a man, like this tall man, like in here, standing behind her, and had a hand on each one of her shoulders, and she looked up. She said, "He's taller than I am," and he's standing right here with me. And she pulled her sleeves up, and every hair on her arm was standing straight up, and goosebumps. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, when the 3 women came down in April and said, "You ever heard the baby crying in the maternity room?" And I said, "No." I said, "Oh, yeah, all 3 of us heard." We said, "We looked around to see if it was the wind blowing through the window or the floor creaking or whatever." We heard it cry 3 times, and then we went to walk out, and I said, "Well, how did it make you feel?" And they said, "We weren't afraid. We just felt bad. We couldn't pick it up." And so we went to walk out, and we heard it cry a 4th time. And so I said, "Oh, well, And so about that time, another retired nurse in her 70s walked in downstairs, and she said, "Oh, I heard that too. I thought it was a cat." So it was 4 women that day in April, and then in September, a big family from Tennessee, and the little boy, he was 3, he did not want to come up the stairs. That was the first thing they wanted to do was get up the stairs, and his mother ended up carrying him. He was very combative. He didn't want to come. Anyway, they got downstairs, and they were standing by the door, and they were about to leave. And I said, "It wasn't so bad. Did you see this skeleton?" And his mom was standing behind him, and he said, "Those babies kept crying and crying." And his mother's standing behind him, and she goes, and I go, "I'm sure they were just hungry and carriage it along." And so when they interviewed me, asked me about it,